and we'll get started here. Okay, so again, welcome to the Sparrow Pond project meeting. Appreciate you all being here tonight. We are going to do a quick overview. I know many of you have already been to the previous Sparrow Pond meetings. We have had 2 prior ones, but we may likely have some new folks here tonight as well. So we will go over some of that background information, talk a little bit about the public process again until now, and then going forward, some of the key concerns from the prior meetings, and then the real bulk of the meeting, important part of this meeting will be the new design highlights. Again, some of that will be review and some of it will be new. And then some of our next steps. And again, please feel free to write your questions and feedback in the chat, and we'll try to take some breaks and answer those questions, or just answer them at the end. And again, at the end, we will be taking questions, allowing folks to unmute and take those questions as well. Go ahead, Ty.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Ty. I'm the project manager. You may have seen some of you at the past meetings that we've had. This map basically shows the location of Sparrow Pond. You can see the blue area is where the pond is existing, and right next to it is the WNOD trail. That trail is owned by Nova Parks, and we've been working closely with Nova Parks as we've developed the design of this project. And right parallel to that trail is 4 Mile Run Trail, which is owned by Arlington County. And there's a culvert that goes under the pond, which outfalls into 4 Mile Run, and that goes through both trails, under both trails. Lily, can you advance the slides for me? I'm not sure. Oh, sorry, let me take control. Okay, I have control now. So this slide shows a bigger map of the area. You can see the different neighborhoods that are part of this pond area. And again, you can see the larger network of the trail and the 4 Mile Run as well. There are a few places where the 2 trails cross along the way. Okay, next slide. A little bit of history on the pond. So in the 1990s, there was an assessment of Sparrow Swamp that was done. Obviously, that area is a depression, so there's been water collecting there. And the community and the county worked together and came up with a plan on how to manage that area. So in 2001, 2002, there was an actual design and construction that was done by the county. Lily, I don't know where the slides went, but I can't see the slides anymore. I don't know if that's the same for everyone. So yeah, 2001, 2002 is when the project was actually constructed, almost 20 years ago by Arlington County. And then a few years later, it started building up. There was just too much sediment coming in, and there was some maintenance done. But eventually it was way too much sediment that was coming in, and it was difficult to keep up with the maintenance. So in 2012, it was decided to sort of reevaluate, redesign, and restore the pond. And in 2016, there was a feasibility study done to evaluate the different options for the pond, and also an embankment study and a geotechnical analysis. Because the WNOD trail is right there and very old, we have to kind of assess to make sure that it would work to have a pond there long term. So that was done, and then 2019 through today, we've been in the design stages. We came out to the community at different stages. We're currently at the 90%, and we still have permitting and a whole procurement process to go through in order to get a contractor on board. And currently the plan for construction is the 2022-23 timeframe. And construction is expected to take 6 to 9 months. Next slide. Okay, so the goals of the project, there are four primary goals. Kind of the reason why we're doing this project. There's obviously a lot of sediment that has built up over time in the pond. So one of the main reasons is to remove the sediment that's built up. And also, as part of the project, we'll be adding a sediment collection forebay. And this will serve as a place where sediment could be would settle out, and then we can remove it through maintenance activities. So it wouldn't be spreading out through the whole pond area. Additionally, there are water quality benefits. It would be, a constructed wetland. It would have the filtration and the nutrient removal that would be part of wetland functions. And also there would be habitat that would be coming back into the pond. This project would also help us meet the Chesapeake Bay pollution diet requirements and the Arlington County stormwater permit requirements. There is a stormwater master plan also that was developed in 2014, and it assesses stormwater infrastructure throughout the county. And this pond was identified as a feature that needed to be upgraded, given that it has so much sediment and it's not functioning as a stormwater treatment facility. And the next slide shows the sort of how sediment impacts the Chesapeake Bay as well. And that's why there is a pollution diet that all the jurisdictions within the watershed have to meet. There's a lot of sediment, as you can see from, this is like a satellite image. So from the highly developed areas like Arlington, there's a cloud of sediment that is feeding into the Chesapeake Bay. And that's the reason why there are some permit requirements and pollution diet for Arlington County. This slide shows the drainage area for this pond. So basically this is the area, if rain falls in this area, that's the black dashed lines, and that area would be sort of the water that's feeding into the pond. It's mostly residential. It's almost 40% impervious cover. And there's also roadway US 50 that goes through there and other smaller roads. So mostly impervious cover that's coming into this pond. And there's a creek that comes into the pond that's called Grandma's Creek. So that's an overview of the drainage area for the pond.
All right. And now I think it's back to me. So these are some aerial photographs of the pond over time. So again, as Ty mentioned, we did have this original sort of pond footprint was constructed in what was previously known as Sparrow Swamp in the 2001-2002 timeframe. Unfortunately, it did fill in very quickly. So you can see already in 2005, you have quite a bit of sediment coming in. And if you look at previous presentations from the previous design levels from concept and from 60%, you can see we have even more aerial photos. So I think 2003, 2005, 2007, 2009, there was one clean out that happened in sort of, I think, the 2007 timeframe. And you can see, a little bit of sediment came out at that point, but it really filled in very quickly. And here you can see the 2018 aerial photo, and you can see the pool 1 and pool 2 almost completely filled in, and pool 3 becoming much shallower than previously. So, addressing the accumulated sediment is really one of the key, and restoring the pond, to those the deeper levels, and also, including that forebay, are some of the main that will allow for future cleanouts, are some of those main goals of the project. A little bit more about the engagement process. So again, we did have an initial meeting in March 2019 at that 30% concept level design. And again, another one in October 2019 at the 60% design. And then here we are, February 2021. There was a bit of a pause last year because of COVID and uncertainty around the budget, but we are moving forward, into 90% design and going forward into 100, after this meeting. So, there is still a ways to go. There are many, tasks that need to be completed on the design side. And we also, will have at least one additional meeting at sort of the 100% or pre-construction meeting before going to construction planned in 2022 or 23. And for those of you for whom this is meaningful, this is considered an involved project. So we appreciate your involvement. Some of the key concerns that we heard in some of the prior public meetings were, interest in the wildlife, habitat, trees, plants, access, and I think that went both ways, both, folks wanting to be able to see the pond, but also not wanting to have too much, walking in the sensitive habitat areas. Maintenance, of course, we've just shown you the reasons why we want to make sure that to be careful that we can maintain it appropriately going forward. Wanting to see education, certainly cyclists and concerns about the trail, the trails themselves, some concerns brought up about trash accumulating in the pond, as well as some interest in porous or permeable surfaces being used. At this point, I think we're switching back over to Ty, if that's right.
Yep. So as we mentioned, some of the main highlights of this project that are new is that we're going to be adding maintenance access path. So that's shown in orange. That will be running parallel to the WOD trail. So during construction, we're going to use the access path for construction as well. So during the actual construction, the trail, WOD trail would remain open. And also during long-term maintenance, that would be open as well. There's maintenance access. So that's where the vehicles would be during maintenance activities. You can also see the forebay area, which is where that sediment would be collected. And for the inflow into the sediment forebay, there is going to be some riprap. So, it would allow some settling of sediment. And then the 3 pools would be part of the new pond. It's basically allows for the water to slow down as it moves through those 3 pools. And in the middle, there's a berm that separates pool 1 and pool 3. Additionally, there's aquatic bench that would be part of this. It allows for more planting and more space for habitat. And then there's an outfall pipe that would also be constructed. So we're going to start zooming into each one of these design highlights. So the next slide. So sediment forebay, this is the image on the left-hand side is typical forebay, what it looks like. And it's, again, it's going to be where sediment can settle out. And there's going to be a way to markers to measure how much sediment is in there. And once it reaches a certain level, that would lead to a maintenance contractor coming out and cleaning it out. So this, again, this is a new feature. It is going to be hard at the bottom so that during excavation, they know exactly how far to go down to excavate the sediment. So the next slide, this shows some of the habitat features and how the benches would look. So from the kind of the steep point, there would be a way to drop it slowly. So there would be a way to do planting at the different stages, these are called benches. And the planting plan will include some of the different plants that would be planted at these different depths. Next slide. Pool 2 is going to be expanded a little bit from the existing extent of the pond. We noticed that there is some sediment that has been deposited there, most likely from the previous project. And in order to safely detain the 100-year storm event, we had to create a larger area for the water to circulate. So there is going to be somewhat of an expansion around Pool 2. And the next slide. So a little bit more detail on the construction and maintenance access path. It would start out from South Park Drive, which is kind of that gray area where it's entering into, it's a connector trail from South Park Drive to WNOD Trail. And it would run, again, parallel to the WNOD Trail. The width of it is about 9 feet wide, and it's that would allow construction vehicles and maintenance vehicles to go through. It's going to be gravel. In the middle, there's going to be topsoil. During construction, it's going to be gravel, but after construction for maintenance, it's going to be there's going to be some topsoil in the middle, and then the tire tracks for the construction vehicles could still go on the gravel side, but there would be some vegetation in the middle. And the reason why we're doing it this way, the reason why we're putting in a separate construction and maintenance access path is, again, to maintain WNOD Trail. Bikers and pedestrians would still be able to use it both during construction and during maintenance activities. We evaluated several alternatives, including using the trail itself, and it was difficult to do that both during construction and during maintenance without impacting users and also impacting the trail itself. So this is what it looks like. And then there's as it goes towards the pond, it's going to be a wider ramp leading up to the pond. So next slide. So maintenance access, that area shown in orange, that's going to be a gravel area. Again, this is where vehicles during maintenance could, there would be an excavator and a dump truck, and they can kind of turn around there. They have enough room to basically clean out the forebay. And that's something we wanted to make sure in this project, is that there is enough space and adequate access to ensure long-term maintenance. We considered using something permeable here. That was something we heard at the first public meeting. And upon further evaluation, we realized it would be very difficult to maintain it in the long term because there would just be a lot of sediment that would clog up that surface anyway. So it would be too difficult to maintain it. So it's going to be gravel, which is not going to be as pervious. Next slide. So the other feature in this project is we're going to have an outfall pipe that would be installed. So there is an existing culvert that was part of the original project, like really long time ago when the WNOD railroad was put in place. So it's a really old culvert that's there, and it's really massively undersized. So we will need, and it's old, so we need to add a new outfall pipe. So that's the one that's shown in gray. And during this pipe installation, it requires actually cutting through the WNOD trail. So the trail would have to be closed during this operation, and that's about a 10-day closure. We are considering also including a pedestrian bridge to lower the amount of time that the trail would have to be closed. And so the idea is once the outfall pipe is constructed through WNOD trail, then there would be detour. Then the second part of it would be to construct the outfall pipe through 4 Mile Run trail into 4 Mile Run. And that during that operation, the traffic would be routed to WNOD trail. So it's convenient to have these two trails right next to each other. We can kind of let pedestrians and bikers go back and forth when one is closed. But again, we are trying to reduce the amount of time that both trails are closed. So Yeah, another portion of this project we're looking at is that connector trail between South Park Drive and WNOD Trail. It's currently in poor condition as there's been more and more heavy intensity rainfall. We've noticed that it's eroding more along the trail, so we're evaluating possible drainage upgrades in this area. You can see how the pavement has been washed out. But again, looking at these options of upgrade and possible impact it would have, we haven't made a decision on whether that upgrade would be made, but it is going to get worse before we get into construction. So we're looking at options there. And this South Park Drive is the entrance to the trail. So it's going to be the entrance for the construction project and for the maintenance of the project. So it is a big component of where construction vehicles would be coming in. And Lily, back to you.
My turn.
Yeah.
So we do have at this point in time a little bit more information about the planting plan and what species are included in the planting plan design. And some of those are featured here with some lovely photos, including, sycamore, northern red oak, smaller trees like eastern redbud, and then, shrubs, many of which are, well above 10 feet or some, and sometimes more, elderberry, arrowwood viburnum, buttonbush, spice bush, all really lovely, carefully planned for the location in which they are most appropriate, of course. Right plant, right place, right tree, right place. And speaking of plants, we also have many, all native species, and these are some of the ones that are featured here. Some really lovely color, Joe Pye, goldenrod, milkweed, both swamp milkweed and butterfly milkweed, New England aster, cardinal flower, rushes, and grasses. Trees were surveyed and mapped and prioritized based on species and habitat value, the condition that they were in, as well as the uniqueness. As part of that tree survey work was done by Wetland Studies and Solutions. As part of that process, there were trees, identified as high priority, moderate priority, low priority, and then trees, not recommended as much for preservation. Previously, we had shown you some of the initial numbers for tree preservation. We had shown you that there were, all high priority trees would be preserved. Of course, there's one highest priority tree, and that actually is on private property, and so that will be preserved. It's well outside of the area that would be disturbed. As part of through some additional preservation goals, we were able to take a look and modify the limits of disturbance somewhat to be able to reduce the moderate priority tree removals from 21, which is what we showed you last time, down to 15, which is some good news as well. We are also looking at some of the other trees, the lower priority or the ones further down on the list, and are going to try and see if there are additional opportunities to reduce those numbers going forward. This was a request at our last meeting, so I wanted to make sure to include it here. You can see where the tree removals are located. So you can see the blue high priority for tree preservation. The colors notate the priority for preservation. So blue being the highest, and then green, and then orange, and then red. Are there any red? Here's one that's red. And trees not recommended for preservation were typically, either dead, which of course we do know that they have wildlife value as snags. But if they are, dead and hanging over and a hazard for construction, then that's, a different story, of course. And the tree, it's very difficult to see, so I apologize for that. But the if there is an X through it, that means that it will be removed. You can see the legend here. So most of the tree removals are concentrated in two locations, one of them being in the forebay area, which, you know, unfortunately we have seen is sort of a necessary addition to the design compared to the 2001 version, and it's certainly best practice for today. And then the second area is over here in the pool 2 area, and again, that was likely, you know, fill that had been dredged in the 2001 initial and piled up in that area, initial construction. So these trees are actually quite new in the grand scheme of things. So of course, we don't like to see any trees removed, but that is, you know, those are where those are concentrated. In terms of the planting plan, of course, we will be replanting back, you know, very robustly. We want to make sure that this is well planted. And so you can see quite a number of trees. The lighter green is the overstory trees. The understory trees are in this lighter green, and then the shrubs, again, many of which are well over our heads, are this darker green and smaller footprint here. So you can see them, you know, all around the edges in here. The seed mix, a riparian seed mix, will be used, as well as wetland plug plantings in the aquatic benches here and in the surrounding areas. And just because I'm sure somebody will ask, invasive control is planned through DES, through Department of Environmental Services, through stormwater for the first 5 years, and then after that it will be handed over to parks for ongoing plans. In an amphibian breeding habitat, this was something that was asked about in a previous meeting. And we had talked about this at the last meeting, but I wanted to bring it up again in case there was somebody who skipped last time around. So we did look to try to include a potential frog breeding habitat in Sparrow Pond area, but ultimately we're not able to incorporate that in. It would require some temporary shallow pools of water free of fish predators. I say that 5 times fast. And if a vernal pool, if an amphibian breeding habitat is in line with the pond and stream, unfortunately fish would be able to enter into the pond. But if it were not in line, the area would only be fed by runoff, and it unfortunately would not be able to accumulate enough water. So there were some complicating factors, and flooding regulations are also a component of what's going on there as well. And certainly, you know, bank stability is something that's very important. So, so that's another, you know, just wanted to report back on that component. And at this point in time, we can take, you know, questions. I know, let's go through some of the ones that are in the chat first. But feel free to, you know, include in the chat, you know, what do you like about the design? What would you like to see stay? What should we take into account moving forward? Suggestions or, you know, certainly concerns, and what additional information would you like to see? So just some of those basic questions. I think that going back through here. Sorry about my background noise. My computer is, I think we answered some of these. A question about, you know, will the current path from Park Drive to the trail be replaced? Again, that's something that we're looking into. Nothing for sure about that at this point in time. Did I miss any? There's a question about, you know, what's the 2018 photo does not reflect the current depth due to the current beaver population, and what's the beaver plan? And that's a great question. So thank you for asking that. So you're right, the the beavers have elevated the pond levels quite a bit. We have been aware of and we have been monitoring the beaver activity. There have been some concerns expressed about water pooling on the other side of the embankment and about possible seepage. So we're monitoring and watching that as well. We may, take some intermediate measures to try to keep water levels a bit closer to the design elevation. Right now, they are, a bit higher than what the design elevation is, and keeping the bank stability is really important as well of the WNOD trail. And actually, on this call, we also have Mike Depew, who is from Nova Parks as well. So again, we're looking at some possible intermediate measures to try and keep water levels a bit lower. And the project, is expected to go to construction in 2022, 2023. At that time, we expect that the beavers will leave. And unfortunately, for a number of reasons, again, having to do with that stability of the embankment, it's really not beneficial to have beavers in the pond in the long term. So does anybody else, does Alonso or Ty or any of the other county staff want to add on to that?
Again, this is Alonso, and we are trying to look at what kind of short-term measures we can include in the future plans. I believe that a beaver baffle would be included. That would prevent water levels from rising above where they're permitted to be. And so we're investigating the different ways that we can deal with this, and in as many different ways as we can.
Thanks for that, Alonso. All right. Actually, at this time, Mike, did you want to come on and say any words about, we really appreciate, everything that that Nova Parks has done to partner with us on this project. Much of the land for the pond is, it's both Arlington County as well as Nova Parks land. So, we really need to, it's really nice to have such a close partner on this.
Lily, I think everybody's muted except staff that are on Teams.
Working on it. Sorry for the technical delays, everybody. This is has been an interesting. Give me a moment. Ty, do you want to go through some of the additional questions?
Yes. Will the current path from... Sorry, I'm trying to read through these. Will the current...
All right, folks should be able to unmute themselves at this point in time. Can I ask Mike to come in? Great, thank you.
Yes.
Can I ask Mike to come in first and say a few words?
Yeah, thank you for that great introduction. This is Mike Depew with Nova Parks. We own and operate lands throughout several jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, including, most notably in this particular case, the WNOD Trail. We're really excited to be partner with Arlington on this project. We recognize the stormwater management importance as well as the ecological habitat importance of Sparrow Pond. Every time I'm out there, including just earlier today, we have the opportunity to interact with all the people that are very interested in the somewhat unique habitat that the pond presents in this particular built area. As was noted previously, the pond has been a feature on the trail for quite a while. However, maintenance has not been something that was formally addressed on a year-to-year, day-to-day basis. And that's something that we're working with Arlington to take care of. via an agreement that addresses that access path. So we look forward to having this pond maintained on a more regular basis so that it can remain an asset to the environment and an interpretive asset to the trail users. Thank you. And while I'm on the line, I would also add some clarity to, while the WNOD trail may at some point be technically closed, the WNOD trail itself, there will never be a point in which you come to Sparrow Pond along the WNOD and don't have some means of bypassing the worksite, whether that be by a temporary pedestrian and bike bridge, or whether that's a detour on the 4-mile run. So your recreational activities will not be disrupted. In some cases, bicyclists may be asked to dismount, but you won't come to the site and find that you can't go any further. Thank you, and I'll hand it over to Arlington.
Thanks for that, Mike. All right, I see that I think Maxwell has a question, has his hand raised.
Yes. I am wondering if there are any opportunities to volunteer to help with invasive plant management at Sparrow Pond after the construction has been completed.
That's a great question, Alonso. Do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. You can contact us at the Natural Resources, and we will be happy to sign you up to help with this. Invasives are an ongoing problem across the county, and we will definitely need some help in keeping this going as it should be. And we appreciate your help. And it's good seeing you, by the way.
Thank you. And on I have a second question. It's a lot more minor, but I also noticed that there were no willows in the planting design. I know they have a prominent significance for specialized insects. I was wondering if you guys thought about including them.
That's a great question. Alonso, do you have any thoughts on willows?
So willows are already part of the project. It certainly is possible to do that. They do have, there's lots of great aspects to them, including the huge amount of insect that they support, that then supports 96% of nesting birds and all of the bats that we have. So it is a premier wildlife plant that could be included. Again, I hope that I have a chance to comment on some of the plantings here, because I do have some additional ideas of things that we may be able to put in there for just these features.
Great,
Okay,
we welcome that input. Thank you. Let's see, any other hands raised? Let's see over here. I think we've got David Howell with his hand raised, and then Jess.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Lily. I actually have 3 questions, and I'll try to do them fast, and then you can just decide how to package the answers and with other staff if you need to. And so one, following up on just what Maxwell raised about the willows, I noticed that in the initial design, or in this design that you're now showing, that the little peninsula that separates the bays from left to right doesn't show any tree planting or any tree removal markers or indicators of any kind. And of course, right now there are trees in there, the ones that the beavers haven't taken already. But I wonder, in terms of the stability of that peninsula, whether, what you're thinking of in terms of plantings, whether it's grasses or other plants or small trees, because it seems like that would be useful to stabilize. And I think some of those that are in there now are willows. So that's the first point. The second point is at the south end, at the pool 2. Right now, there's a little annex actually that comes up near the path. That's kind of like an overflow annex that's, I think, gotten sealed off because of the sediment. And what I'd like to know is whether you intend to fill that and smooth out that circular motion that comes back around to go back the other way, or whether that's going to be incorporated. Right now, it's permanently wet, but it's just almost completely separated from that area where pool 2 would be. And my third question, just for the record, so I can just let everybody else have a chance, is you're going to be taking a lot of silt out of there. So I'm curious of whether you have an idea of what to do with that silt, which probably will have a lot of actually macroinvertebrates and other wildlife in it, and certainly nutrients and other things. So I don't know what you do with removed silt, but it seems like there might be someplace else useful to put it. It's just a question.
Those are some great questions. So I'll answer what I can, and then I'm going to pass off what I can't. In terms of Pool 2 and the annex, I believe, actually, let me go back to here. So I believe that the annex is actually here. I could be wrong, but I believe the annex so right now this is this area comes up a bit. It's a bit of, this is where we believe that sediment was likely deposited in the 2001-2002 area. So this area over here, I think, is the annex. So the annex will actually be part of Pool 2 going forward, if I'm not mistaken. In terms of the silt, and if there would be, possibility, macroinvertebrates and things like that, in the silt, that's a great question. We are planning to do, plant, and to the extent possible, maybe some animal rescues. I do not believe that macroinvertebrate rescues are in the plans, although macroinvertebrates are near and dear to my personal heart. So now you've got me thinking. But to my knowledge, that's not, something that that's an option at this time. Go ahead, Alonso.
If I could add as well, in addition to some of the beneficial stuff in there, because things are washing in from way up above, it may also, in fact, very likely have, since it's right near a trail and things like that, also full of invasives, and trying to sort it out and save one without dealing with the other may be very hard to do. Just something like that. And as far as the rescues, yeah, both plant and animal rescues are something that's been suggested and something that we've been taking into account.
Yeah, great. And then I think the other question was about the peninsula, and if there, why tree planting might not have been an option, or might not have been suggested for that area. And I believe that may have to do with that. Maybe Ty or possibly John could help answer that question.
Sure. So that's the berm, right?
Right, on the berm.
Yeah, so we'll be using that for a little bit of maintenance as well, to get to the pools and do any replanting and things like that would be needed. So there is simple grass that's going to be there, but nothing major to allow for maintenance access there.
If I could just add that I think, and I understand that maintenance is important there with the rest of the design, but just because it's needed for maintenance, please don't neglect a creative planting design there, both for preservation of the berm itself, but also because that is one of the places where everybody sees an awful lot of wildlife.
There are quite a few, perennials and things like that have a ton of wildlife value that I think could very well be, that would be quite a good location for.
Great, thanks for that feedback. All right, let's see. I think Jess, do you still have your hand raised? Go ahead.
So I had a couple questions, but I guess my biggest one to start was about the beavers. Just considering that they're so beloved by the community and it's such a nice feature of this pond. I guess I'm just trying to understand how that's factoring into your plan, and how you plan to deal with the beavers during the project?
Great, thanks for that. We are really trying to, do what we can to take into account the dual concerns, right? So on the one hand, we want to make sure doing anything that would, compromise the stability of the embankment. Certainly, everybody who uses the trail and who, uses that area to watch the, to look at the pond and to watch the wildlife in it also has, a stake in that. As well. And on the one hand, we do know that the beavers have been, that people are out there watching the beavers, every evening. I've heard from many people. So thank you for reiterating that. And thank you to the other folks who have shared that with me, the love of the beavers. So, again, we're looking at ways that we can balance those two concerns. And that's, why we're looking at some of these ways of potentially, helping to lower the level of the water, in that intermediate term. Does that help?
Yeah, I guess oh, sorry, it's a little echoey. I was wondering, it sounds like you are expecting, though, that construction will cause them to be displaced. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we are expecting that they will likely leave when construction starts. And again, because the beavers do raise those water levels, that's just what they do. We'd be looking for ways of discouraging them to be there, including, a beaver baffle to, and other options. Again, we understand that folks are attached to the beavers. We hope that they would go and, possibly find a place to be otherwise. Unfortunately, Virginia law does not allow beavers to be relocated. So, we don't want to necessarily pursue, that option of having to trap them. Does that help?
Yeah, if I could add, you have to also remember that beavers are a temporary habitat, that you only see them temporarily. After a few years, when they basically take out what they can as far as trees and so forth in the area, they will move on. And so, this was a temporary thing regardless. And having the beaver baffles there will hopefully allow them to stay for an extended period of time, but in the end, they will move on. And as mentioned, for a variety of different reasons, you can't trap and relocate beaver by state law. And even if you could, studies showed only 42% of them ever survive. So, we will do the best that we can, knowing that this is a temporary feature. And when they come back, and the beaver baffle will be part of the program, then they will have to modify their habitat to include that as far as any dam building that they will do.
Okay, that helps. Thank you. The other question I had is in regards to the South Park trail that you all are using as a construction access point. I couldn't catch it on that slide. Is that going to be open during construction to pedestrians? Will it still be a pedestrian access point to the parks?
Yes, that's a great question. So there will be flaggers who will help to allow people to continue to access and safely the trail. Good question. Thank you for that.
Great. Thank you.
Lily, if I may add to it. So during construction, yes, what Lily said is accurate, that the intent is to keep the trail open, but there may be period where we have delivery equipment and material deliveries. We may have to close the trail for a brief period of time, but that will be communicated well ahead, and it will be it will be very intermittent. But most of the time, the trail will be open, and we will try to employ flaggers to the extent possible as well when we don't need to, when the expected construction traffic is light. and we don't need to close the trail, we'll use flaggers at the time.
Great, thanks for that additional context. I appreciate that encore from our engineering bureau for folks. All right, let's see. Do we have any other hands? David and Maxwell, do you have new questions or go ahead.
I do have a new quick. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Could you go back to the tree planting plan? I just wanted to see something real quick to see if my question is really necessary or not. Sorry, not the planting plan. Oh my goodness. The tree removal plan. Wrong thing.
Sorry, this one or the next one?
The map, please.
The map, okay. It's hard to see, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, so when you're building the new outflow pipe, there will be, I see on the map that there will be some trees cut down in the area near the output of the pipe, near the river. And I'm pretty sure that's the area, correct me if I'm wrong, where there's a swath of kudzu. And I was wondering if there was any implementation to make sure the kudzu doesn't come back, because that would probably almost eradicate it.
Yes, so that's part of this spring's plan, is to actually deal with the kudzu as well as several other invasives in that area that do spread quite a bit. And it is regardless of whether the project was taking place now or 5 years from now, we were going to address that. And this spring is likely when we will address the kudzu in that area.
Okay, actually, follow up to that, I just reminded myself. My brother and I often walked a trail that I'm not sure is entirely a trail that led to the stream that feeds into this pond. And there's also some developing kudzu back there that could easily, and it's easily overtaken. We saw it just this summer, easily overtake lots of trees, and that's headed towards a pond, just for a heads up.
Yeah, again, if it's on public property, it's on park property, we can deal with it. If it's not, then that does raise some other concerns about how we would have to deal with it. But if it's on public property, we have our eyes on this and we are trying to deal with it.
If it is on private property, you know, if you want to reach out to me, and my contact information is on this last slide. I have been in touch with several of the neighbors in this area, and I'd be happy to connect you with the neighbors in that area to help target those, you know, hit those before they take over, because I'm sure that the homeowners have a vested interest in that as well.
Yeah, it's just on the edge of the private property, and it might have also gone into the private property.
Okay, yeah, if you can shoot me a quick email, and then I can try and pass that information along to the appropriate property owner, that would be great. Thank you. I see that Carolyn has her hand up. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Hi, Lily. Thank you very much for this presentation. Question for you about public access. I typed that in the chat as well. But where I did not see a slide on that, and we had talked about that at the last meeting of trying to maximize viewing access, not necessarily inside, you know, anywhere in the different pools, but using that maintenance spot that could have some public access so people could actually get closer to take photos or whatever it is without actually getting into the ponds. So do you have a slide for that?
I do not, and I appreciate you bringing it up at this time. I'm going between two screens here, so I apologize, and they're set up the opposite. So I apologize for my slowness in some of these. So the observation deck will continue to be in place, but I appreciate you bringing that up because in the past, there were some questions about, well, could there be, some sort of closing across the, a gate or something across the access path or things like that. I'm going to throw it over to Ty and maybe John or Ankur to see if they have any thoughts about that.
Sorry, Lily, I was typing some responses, so I didn't hear the question.
Sorry, let me say that again. So the question about access of, again, not wanting people, sort of wanting to balance access, allow folks to see the pond and, view the wildlife, from the viewing deck, which I mentioned, that will still continue to be in place per the plan, but also wanting to make sure that we're not having people come in to sort of disturb some of the more sensitive habitat areas. And in a previous meeting, we had talked about, possibly having some sort of gate or something like that that could close off the access ramp or something like that. Is that still an option?
Yeah, that's still going to be put in. So there's going to be a gate at the maintenance access ramp. So right there, yeah. So really it's really for maintenance vehicles to access that ramp. So we just want to be clear that it's not for public access.
So there's not going to be any trails at all to be able to get in and view closer? I mean, it's only going to be the deck along the bike trail, that's it?
Yeah, there's not going to be anything formal that would be included. It was just there's a lot of limitation on the space there to do both the pond features and also to add public access points. So the deck, and there might be some ways to just informally. There's a bench area at the end there where.
Just so you all know too, and I think you do because we brought this up in previous meetings, that we've sort of used Sparrow Pond as an example of ways that we can do a better job of coordinating different uses within the county and not just narrowly looking at it as a stormwater project, but how do you also make this a recreation project, and how do we take a much biophilic lens in the way we do these projects so that we have multiple uses. And so I guess that was the point of trying to figure out how do we be more creative in that maintenance access so that you might also be able to expand public viewing in a way. And so we had a lot of discussion about it at the last meeting. So I was surprised not to see any mention of it at all in this presentation.
So I apologize, Carolyn. I may have, not. I think what we heard at that first meeting that we had was sort of two almost opposing viewpoints, and I'd love to hear more, and maybe we can have take this discussion offline as well. Happy to follow up with you on that. Was that we both wanted to provide access to be able to see what's happening, but also not love it to death. I think was a really important point that was brought up. And so we, having that maintenance access, look, we all know that there are sort of informal paths around the pond. I hope I'm not busting that secret out in this audience. I think, probably everybody here knows that. It is having that maintenance access drive is a bit of an invitation in. So I do also want to be sensitive to the questions about, the importance of keeping people out of the sensitive habitat areas and things like that. So, Alonso, if there's anything that you want to add to that, and I think we would really appreciate that. And again, Carolyn, if we want to follow up, on separately, happy to chat more about the details of that.
Yeah, and I will add, it is quite it can be quite difficult to allow access to a place. and still be able to preserve what could be sensitive plants and things like that. So in allowing access, you oftentimes destroy the actual habitat. If by nothing else is having too many people there, then the animals find somewhere else to go unless they come out at night to do their thing. So it is a mixed bag. If you do allow this and you don't have some way to enforce or otherwise control the access to it, you are removing the biophilic element in that you are destroying the nature that would normally be there in one way or another. And that it is a tricky balance if you do try to go down that road.
Yeah, we had talked about, and I will follow up with you, Lily, but we had talked about the fact that we're going to have maintenance vehicles in there anyway. So is there a way to somehow fence that in such a way that it's very clear that it's, you're meant to stay behind the fence, but if you're going to have maintenance vehicles in there anyway, that it was an opportunity. So anyway, I'm happy to talk with you later, but I just wanted to raise up.
Yeah, I'd be happy to chat more and do some brainstorming and hopefully bring that back to the design team as well. So thanks for bringing that up.
Lily, I would also point out something that I would be, as an engineer, would be concerned about, that the safety of not just the wildlife and habitat, safety of people themselves getting close to these wet pools. These are going to be wet pool areas. They are not going to be dry ponds. So I would be worried about that as well for public access.
Right, not wanting to have a hazard for folks. That's a really good additional point. Thank you for that, Encore.
I have a question. Unless I just came in, they've answered before. There are some trees growing in front of the observation platform, and they keep on growing every time they get cut down. Are plans to actually remove those trees? They cut them down within a couple of years. They're blocking the observation platform again.
So I believe there's a sycamore in front of there, and
yeah,
you're right that there is. It does kind of keep coming back up and then going back down. You can see here in the planting plan what's planned for planting in that area are the shrubs with a bit of an opening. Of course, we want to balance the having robust plantings but also allowing for viewing. But that's a good point. I do believe that sycamore is within the limits of disturbance here. If Alonso, if you want to, you may have a better sense of where exactly that's growing up than I do.
It is growing right in front of the viewing area, and it is something that people have brought up before, and again we have pruned it a number of times, but as these things do grow with beavers that they're used to getting pruned, they do keep coming back. So that is something that people have said before, and obviously you can't move the plants, so whatever we do, we'd have to either destroy the plant or that would be the only option, I think, is to actually to destroy both the trees that are actually in front of there.
Yeah.
That would be a good option, because really there are places where trees belong and places where they don't. You can always put low shrubs there anyway.
Yeah, Alonso, do you have a sense of whether that tree is within the limits of disturbance here, or?
I'm not quite sure what the LODs are, honestly, so I can't comment on that.
Okay. Yeah, hard to say at this point, but that's a good point. Thank you. And people with their hands raised, I think we've got Maxwell again, and oh no, he's gone. David again, and Kay.
So yeah, thank you very much. Just one other, I thought I was done, but following up on what Carolyn raised about viewing, I'll leave it to you all to have an offline conversation about the access road area, but it does occur to me, and I think many people here will have witnessed this. There's a narrow grassy pathway, informal pathway, right off the paved trail. It's a pretty small bank, but that area of the trail isn't particularly wide, and when you have a busy traffic on it with bicyclists and everything else, people standing on the trail watching the pond can be in the way, so they step off, but then when they turn to step back on, it's an issue. And I'm just wondering, I know this might be a little bit complicated because it might involve Nova Parks a little bit more than they initially thought, but it seems like maybe a couple of supplements on either side to the viewing platform, maybe even in the form of a 2-foot wide extension of the pathway made out of deck material, like the viewing platform is, not made out of asphalt, but just on a few sticks to let people get off the trail when they're stopped to look at all the things that they want to look at, because I do think that that can often be a little bit of a hazardous circumstance, and this is an opportunity to enhance the viewing opportunities where we want people to view up and down the length of it without having to do anything intrusive, but also to improve the safety of the path.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. And you're talking sort of along this section here. Oops, I can't control my mouse. Along this section here, you know, sort of next to the trail. Okay,
that's right.
You.
That's right. Basically, just using deck type material to sort of widen the trail on the side of the pond itself, just a couple feet, just so that people are standing off the paved path when they're not moving.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I just have another comment about the entranceway that where is at the left side where the trucks can get down to the pond. You got to make sure when you keep this open that they don't just mow the grass all the time. That's basically could easily be hit. There's a wild area as long as trees aren't growing in there. That was always a big problem many years ago now, but you see, you kind of need a maintenance to allow the wild plants and everything to just grow there, but just keep it so that the trees and heavier shrubs don't get in there. Because really, you don't want people walking down there, and more importantly, it's just destroying a natural area. But if you mow it, so that should be the maintenance plan. Right now, it's not too bad, but it was some years ago when they were mowing. Again, they were mowing it all the way down to there.
So you're suggesting having a reduced mowing schedule in that area?
Okay. Yes, very definitely, maybe once a year. That's
all right.
it.
Okay. And Kay? Has her hand raised.
Hi, thanks. It's Tom. Hi, thanks. It's Tom Tiernan. I appreciate the presentation and the work. I want to make sure I understand the maintenance plan, the long term, and this may be too far ahead, but if I understand it correctly, the forebay will collect the sediment, and then maintenance of that over time would be to collect and remove that sediment. I was wondering about maintenance vehicle access, if the plan is that if that would be left up to the contractors on how they get to there, or if that would be through Park Drive again, or through the WNOD trail from Columbia Pike the other way.
Yeah, so the construction access path would be converted, that we showed earlier in that orange that's adjacent to the WNOD trail, would be converted to the maintenance access path afterwards. And again, we're hoping for or thinking about annual maintenance. Normally with a project like this, you would schedule maintenance, every 3 to 5 years. But since we've seen that this pond, gets quite a bit of sediment from upstream areas, unfortunately, which are pretty much all private property, we are planning for the possibility of more frequent maintenance, about once a year.
So that maintenance access would be, yeah, just so that maintenance access would basically be a somewhat of a permanent feature.
Right, and so when it wouldn't be, so it would be just adjacent to the trail, and so, in the other 360 whatever days of the year, it would be, people could walk on that gravel path as well. So.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yeah, one other thing. When you did this big job about 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you took out a lot of standing snags and trees that the birds were really the water birds who were up there, looking down at the water and say, and is this going to happen again? That you'll be taking down all the snags and the trees like that, which may or may not be alive, but are growing out of in the area that we have disturbance. Can we try to make an attempt to keep some of those?
So again, if there are trees that are, hazardous, then, for the folks who are in there, doing the installation, then that would be, inside those limits of disturbance, then that would be one thing. But if they're outside of the limits of disturbance that, and are not, hazardous, then that many of those trees will be kept, and we'll be trying to see if there are some additional opportunities for that. In the future, I'd ask if you can please raise your hand prior to just speaking out. Thank you. So I have not had a chance to monitor the chat closely, but I do see that there's quite a bit of back and forth, and Ty's been answering some questions as well. But I think that looking through them now, it looks like we've hit many of the questions. If the other county staff on the line see anything that needs to be addressed, can you speak up, county staff, at this time?
Hi, Lily. This is Kristen.
Hey.
There was a question about funding. And so funding for construction is planned to be included in the upcoming capital improvement plan.
Great. Thank you for seeing that and for answering it. Let's see. I think I see Kay/Tom may still have their hand raised.
Oh, no questions, thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, well, if anybody did not feel like they had got their question answered, can you raise your hand at this time? All right, seeing none, I think that we will wrap up at this point in time. I really appreciate, we really appreciate everybody's participation, and there's some really good dialogue, I think, that we had here this evening. So thank you all for that, and thanks to all the staff that are on the call. Thank you to Mike from Nova Parks, and again, we'll be in touch. We'll put the presentation slides up on the website as well as the recording, and we'll write up some of the questions and answers as well. All right, thank you all, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
Take care, folks.
Thank you.
Likewise.